Hi guys, um, welcome to class. This is Art 110. I just want to show you slides to get started. First of all, I want to show you our YouTube channel, and the channel is Professor Glossip. Let me just see if I can get to it here for you. Here it is. It looks like this. And of course, on mobile, it'll look different. And so here's a link. It'll be on the PDF of slides, and I'm going to upload these slides as well. And just to note, when you go to the YouTube channel, you want to look up the Art 110 videos. So Art 110 video 1 will be this video if you want to watch again. So I just want to look at these slides. First of all, here's the YouTube channel, Professor Glossip. My Instagram is jglossip, and that's where I post images of my work and what I'm working on. And then my website's here if you do want to look at my website. So I just want to discuss what is designing as a broad term. And we could think of it in many ways: conceiving, inventing, contriving, forming a plan for, drawing a sketch, having as a goal or purpose to intend, visual composition or pattern, or a reasoned purpose or intention. And the interesting thing is that the word is both a noun and a verb. So when we attempt to arrange parts in a way that is efficient and attractive and meaningful, we're engaged in the process of design. So what I mean by a noun and a verb is we can say I'm designing a design. It's happening right now. I designed these words and these sentences to look just like this. So I designed this design. And we should go on a little bit of a tangent. There's fine art and applied art, and they cross paths a lot. And we can say, though, generally that applied art might integrate functionality or utility as its main importance, whereas fine art holds the aesthetic attributes as the most important thing. So here's an example of applied art or design, and this is just super utilitarian. And it's really hard to think of objects that are utilitarian and not having some degree of artistic or fine art consideration. So this cinder block is one of the few things I can think of that hasn't had consideration for color, for example. It just is what it is, and it's purely functional. Most of the objects around you have had things like color selected for or shape selected for, so there's aesthetic consideration. Here's an interesting example of applied art that's also concerned with visual design. These are Corinthian columns, and their primary purpose is for structural support, so utility, but they're also decorated, so they've got these aspects of fine art. Stained glass windows as well. Their primary purpose is to let light in, but they've been decorated, so artistically designed. And so we can say the following are examples of applied art with visual concerns. I have no idea what that product in the background is. I just think it's funny. But advertisements and commercial art, book covers, furniture, architecture, product packaging, web design, and in some ways game design. So the primary purpose of games is usually for entertainment, but obviously there's aesthetic consideration. And then that crosses over into what are the purposes of art. And in many works of art, the primary function arguably is a type of entertainment. And here we've got purely fine art, this Caravaggio painting. And we can see here its primary purpose is the visual. It doesn't really have functional aims outside of itself, other than to relay its own content. Something like this was designed by a fine artist, but it is for advertising. It's an example of Soviet constructivism, by the way. And then we look at something like a Mondrian painting, and perhaps this is the closest thing to pure aesthetic design. It doesn't even have a story it's trying to communicate like the Caravaggio painting. It just purely is what it is, an aesthetic object. Commercial design, the Apple logo, and we can see how it's changed over time. Not much, the shape has stayed the same, but it's gone to all gray. Evolution of the IBM logo. And I think it's arguable that a lot of logo design and font is actually going back to the more historical, more aesthetic design versus the more clinical design that we see in more recent years. We can apply design to paintings. This is an example of Romanticism, JMW Turner. And there's interesting parallels with that slide and this one, this drama and grandeur. Design happens in presentations. The Apple presentations always have good design work going on. So here's a few slides of some work that we'll be doing. Here's an example of dynamic composition. And you'll notice at the beginning of the class, especially, we're using basic shapes and black and white a lot. And the purpose for this is I want to just concentrate on basic elements. I don't want to concentrate so much on expression, such that we don't really want to look at images per se, but just these basic building blocks, these basic shapes. So we can just manipulate those shapes to focus purely on composition and concepts. More dynamic composition. Here we've got a symmetrical composition that is arguably less dynamic. It feels more contained. We'll be doing some scaling and proportioning and some architectural elevation. Zooming and cropping or expanding and scaling. Some rhythm making and some pattern making. These are actually two different things. Rhythm and pattern are two different things. And we spend a lot of time with patterns because they're really a great way to explore all the elements. I don't know if we'll be able to work out block printing at home, but maybe I can come up with an idea on how to do this. There's lots of ideas like homemade block printing using potatoes. Maybe we could do something like that. This is one of mine. This is a lino block print. So a piece of linoleum and then this homemade press that I made. I'm not really sure we'll be able to get to perspective drawing, but maybe if I can figure out a way. And then the final project will be making signs. So for you to integrate everything we've learned to try to make effective signs. How does the text communicate with the image? And how do they agree with each other in terms of their design attributes? So we need to understand these terms, the elements of art and the principles of design. So the elements of art are the building blocks, the fundamental characteristics of vision, whereas the principles of design are the interaction between those elements, between those building blocks. So the elements are the characteristics and the principles are the behaviors. So the elements are line, shape, form, color, value, texture, and space. And the principles are contrast, emphasis, balance, movement, rhythm and pattern, unity and variety, and scale and proportion. So Legos are a great example for this because Lego Company actually calls each of the building blocks elements. And so here we can say things like the green block is rectangular and green and has a bumpy texture. And then take that and apply a principle like contrast. So we could say that the green block contrasts the red block. We could also say they're proportionate to one another. We could say that as a whole, each of these blocks takes up a small scale of the overall available space. And we could probably apply all the elements and the principles to this slide. And here they're listed again. So all of our projects will in some way incorporate these. The very first project will look at value, and and that's mostly where we'll concentrate when we do a grayscale. So that's it. Um, Go on to video 2 next, where I'll describe grayscale. It's really straightforward. And then we'll do another video with a demo of how I want you to do a grayscale. And then we'll just continue on from there. Be sure to post any questions you have in the discussion area on Canvas for assignment 1.